Good evening to all the students. Today we shall learn the poem The Gift of India. The name of the poet is Sarojini Naidu. This is the photo of Sarojini Naidu. This is the biography of the poet. Sarojini Naidu or Sarojini Chattopadhyay was born in the year 1879, February 13, in Hyderabad in India, and she died on March 2nd, 1949, in Lucknow. She was a political activist, feminist, poet, and the first Indian woman to be president of the Indian National Congress and to be appointed as Indian state governor. She was sometimes called the Nightingale of India. We move on to the next slide. Sarojini was the eldest daughter of Aghorinath Chattopadhyay, a Bengali Brahmin who was appointed principal of the Nizam's College, Hyderabad. She entered the University of Madras at the age of 12 and studied at King's College from 1895 to 1898, King's College, London, and later at Girton College, Cambridge. So for more information about the poet, you can refer to your school's textbook, page number 105. Now we shall study in detail a stanza-wise explanation of the poem. You can open your textbook in order to have a clear understanding of the poem. Now this is the poem, stanza 1 of the poem. Stanza 1. You can open your textbooks as I have already told you. I'll read out the lines for you. Is there aught you need that my hands withhold? Rich gifts of raiment or grain or gold? Lo, I have flung to the east and west priceless treasures torn from my breast, and yielded the sons of my stricken womb to the drumbeats of duty, the sabers of doom. Now, explanation of stanza 1. In the opening stanza of the poem, Mother India raises a question to the world, asking if she has withheld any of her riches like clothes, grain, or gold from them. She asks if she has denied any form of sacrifice to the world that was needed for a better tomorrow. She has promptly given away the courageous sons of the nation she calls her priceless treasures. So, priceless treasures are actually referred to the Indian soldiers who were given by India to fight for other nations. We'll come to those nations for whom our Indian soldiers have fought. Now, she calls her priceless treasures to the eastern and western countries without any hesitation to honor her international commitments to ensure harmony in the world. So, in order to ensure peace and harmony in the world, our Indian mother, India, has promptly given, without any hesitation, has given away the soldiers, the Indian soldiers, to fight for the countries in big battles and wars. Now, Mother India is actually very sad, and she says that no rich or gold or money can buy that sacrifice that her soldiers have given to the world. She goes on to talk of her brave sons. Brave sons here refers to the soldiers. So she goes on to talk of her brave sons who have readily accepted every challenge that came their way. So the challenges were accepted by the Indian soldiers, and they accepted the challenge of fighting for other countries that came their way to cater to their global commitments, as a result of which they are lying buried in foreign soils. This means that India not only thinks about her own territory, her own nation, her own country, but India thinks of the other worlds also. That is why when the other countries needed Indian soldiers to fight for them, India did not hesitate. Indian mother is saying that, Mother India is saying that she did not hesitate to give her soldiers when other countries needed these soldiers to fight wars for them, and for which they are, these soldiers, the dead bodies of the soldiers are lying in the, are buried in the foreign soils, that means in the western countries. Mother India agreed to send the Indian soldiers to the land of chaos, death, and destruction to protect the nation's integrity and prestige. So that the countries of the rest of the world believe that India is indeed capable of giving soldiers and helping them in times of need. That is why, in order to protect India's integrity and prestige, reputation of the country, India has promptly, readily given uh, her Indian soldiers, which she refers to as priceless treasures. She has given up the sons born out of a womb to the world for the sake of the country's esteem and commitments. So, India has not fallen down actually. India has always accepted every challenge, and when the uh, rest of the countries from the world needed uh, soldiers to fight for them, India had given uh, her sons, that means the soldiers, to fight for the sake of the country's esteem, reputation, and commitments, its promises. So India had promised the other countries. India still today commits to the other countries that whenever there is any problem in other country, India is always ready to help. So at that time also, when the world, the nations of other world needed India's help in terms of soldiers, India has accepted that promise, and she gave away her soldiers, which was really a heartbreaking thing for the country actually. Let us move on to stanza 2. Gathered like pearls in their alien graves, silent they sleep by the Persian waves. Scattered like shells on Egyptian sands, they lie with pale brows and brave, broken hands. They're strewn like blossoms mown down by chance on the blood brown meadows of Flanders and France. Now we come to the explanation of stanza 2. This would be stanza 2 actually. In the second stanza, Mother India laments. She is sad actually. Okay, so Mother India laments the death of the heroic soldiers who fought in the war with the utmost valor and zeal and are now lying buried in their graves in foreign lands like pearls in their shells. So actually, Mother India is very sad at the death of her heroic Indian soldiers who had fought in the war with great courage. Utmost valor and zeal means with great courage, and their dead bodies are now buried in the graves. Okay, so their dead bodies, the soldiers who fought on the foreign soil for other countries, their dead bodies are now lying buried in the graves in the foreign lands, and their dead bodies are referred to as pearls. Generally, we consider dead bodies as something which is very bad, something which gets decayed over time. But these soldiers, these Indian soldiers, the dead bodies of these Indian soldiers are considered as pearls. Pearls in Hindi, if you say pearl, it means uh, you know moti. Okay, so these pearls means moti actually. So these, the dead bodies of the Indian soldiers are referred to as pearls, motis, which are very valuable, priceless, okay, in their shells. So over 1 million Indian troops from Britain colonial empire had served the British army in the First World War. Now we know that the country was Britain actually, and in the First World War, our Indian soldiers had joined the British army to fight for them in the First World War. And how many soldiers? Out of which 75,000 soldiers died in foreign land. So you can imagine the number of soldiers who had died in the Indian soldiers who had died in the foreign lands. Okay, so around 75,000 soldiers had, out of 1 million, out of 1 million Indian soldiers, 75,000 soldiers had died in the foreign lands, and some of them are buried along the tranquil Persian Sea. So in Persia also, the countries like Persia, so in a country called Persia, their dead bodies, the dead bodies of the soldiers are lying, and while others are scattered like shells, again shells, on the Egyptian land. So you can see that the countries mentioned here are British, Persia, Egypt. Okay, so in all these countries, our heroic soldiers, the dead bodies of our heroic soldiers, are lying like moti shells. Okay, which are very priceless. And in stanza 2, Mother India actually laments, and Mother India is very sad that her heroic soldiers had fought and had lost their lives. We continue stanza 2. They lie pale and colorless. Obviously, dead bodies, over a period of time, if they are kept buried without having paid any attention, their body would be colorless and pale only. Any dead body would have that condition, would have gone through that condition. So their dead bodies lie pale and colorless with hands that have been broken in the battlefield. So you see in a battlefield where there are gunshots, cannonballs fired, you can imagine the condition of the dead bodies. So maybe some of the soldiers might have broken hands, hands severed from their body, while some may have legs severed from their body, you know, and so on. So there are other brave soldiers whose lifeless bodies, but dead bodies, lie scattered like flowers in the blood-tainted meadows of Flanders and France. So the poet not only considers the dead bodies of the Indian soldiers to shells, uh, motis, but the dead bodies of these brave soldiers are considered to be flowers also. Okay, so like flowers, their dead bodies lie lifeless in countries like France also. The bleeding Indian soldiers chose not only to sacrifice their blood and sweat for their motherland, but also to prove the fact that India has never backed out from its promised commitment. So when the time came for India to show their commitment and courage, the Indian soldiers did not say no. Uh, when the time came to prove their courage, Indian soldiers had never backed out. Rather, the Indian soldiers accepted the challenge, and they had gone to fight for other nations also, thus keeping the reputation, the prestige of our country. Let's continue. The selfless sacrifice of the Indian soldiers. So it is a selfless sacrifice. It is a sacrifice because the Indian soldiers who are fighting for the other land, okay, has done it not because of money, but because they love our country. Okay, you can imagine the soldiers who are guarding us at the borders are actually doing a selfless service, because if you count their salary and the salary of a normal officer, they are paid much less. But still, why do they sacrifice their lives? It is because they love their country. It is because of their love towards their country, and their selfless love towards their country, that keeps them that makes them more courageous, and they keep guarding us in our borders also. So the selfless sacrifice of the Indian soldiers show that India has lived up to its expectations by proving its loyalty to its global allies. That means, say India is friends to countries like America, India is friends to countries like Russia, India is friends to other countries also, even our neighboring countries. So whenever these countries had needed the help of India, India has always proved its loyalty. That means India has always come forward to help our neighboring, our friend nations, like America, like Russia, or there are several other nations that India has helped earlier also, and India is still capable of helping. So India has always proved its loyalty to its global allies. Global allies means those countries who are friends to us actually. Now we move on to stanza 3. Can ye measure the grief of the tears I weep, or compass the woe of the watch I keep, or the pride that thrills through my heart's despair, and the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer, and the far sad glorious vision I see of the torn red banners of victory? Explanation for stanza 3. So now Mother India asks rhetorical questions to express the fact that there is no possible way in which the world can measure the intensity of her grief. This means that, let us come to the stanza, the poem actually. Mother India is asking here, you see, can you measure, okay, ye, can you measure the grief, the sadness of the tears I weep? Mother India is saying that, is there any possible way through which the world can measure the intensity of her grief? Now, what is the grief? Why is Mother India sad? Mother India is sad because she has lost her courageous soldiers who had fought for other countries in other battles or in other wars. Okay, so Mother India is asking that, is there any possible way that her grief can be measured? And actually, she is not asking. She is actually, it's a rhetorical question. She is not asking actually. She is saying that no, there is no possible way in which the world can measure my grief. Okay, the world cannot possibly comprehend her grief and suffering that she had to face at the loss of her murdered son. Murdered mane shaheed. Okay, so Mother India is saying that I'm sorry. Mother India is saying that the world cannot possibly comprehend, the world cannot understand. Comprehend means understand. So the world cannot possibly understand her grief and suffering that she had to face. So Mother India is very sad because she has lost her sons, her soldiers who had become shaheed in the wars. Okay, so even though she is torn by the grief in her heart, that means this grief is tearing her apart. Okay, her heart is bleeding. Her heart is bleeding because she has lost her courageous sons, the soldiers. She is exhilarated by a sense of pride offered by the soldiers, and she is sad also, but at the same time she is very proud also that her soldiers, her sons, had kept you know her esteem up. Okay, her pride in the heroism and spirit of her sons overwhelms her sense of despair and sorrow. That means she is very proud also of the heroism and the courage that the soldiers have shown, and at the same time she is very sad also because there is no mother in this world who can be happy when her son or the children, when her sons or daughters die actually. So the same thing is happening with Mother India here. She has lost, she's very sad because she has lost her heroic soldiers, but at the same time she is also very proud that her soldiers were very brave and they bravely fought in the wars for other countries also. Okay, she bears immeasurable pain. This means the pain that she has cannot be measured, and anguish, she is very angry also. Okay, in her heart at the thought of parting ways with her sons. So there is no mother in the world who can live without her children. The same is with our Mother India. She is sad because now her children are not alive. Children means here the soldiers, they are now not alive. So she is very sad also. See, immeasurable pain, pain that cannot be measured, and she is very angry also. Okay, because her sons are no more alive and she will never be able to meet her sons. Okay, same with any mother you can imagine. However, we continue with stanza 3. Okay, we continue with stanza 3. However, she prays for a world in which there is no place for fights, hatred or terror. So that is why Mother India says that I pray that there is peace and harmony all around the world. There is no country who fights. There is no country who hates another country. So she's actually praying for a world in which there is no place for fights, hatred or terror. Every day we watch news where we see countries where terrorists plant bombs or kill peoples, and for that there is sometimes a war also. Okay, so Mother India is praying that there is no country which fights, which hates other countries, or which spreads terrorism, and the thought of a better world in which peace and harmony is restored. As I already told you, she is praying for a world in which there is eternal peace and there is eternal harmony. Okay, here she is anticipating their victory, which will put an end to the cruelties in the world. So actually, she is saying that my soldiers, my here, Mother India. So Mother India is saying that my soldiers who have fought for the other countries, even for my own country also, uh, their victory will put an end to the cruelties in the world. The world, all the countries in the world takes to peace and harmony. There's no country in the world who fights actually. She's praying that there's no country in the world who would fight. So in the same time, she is saddened by the thought of the soldiers who are going to sacrifice their lives to bring glory to the country. So sometimes you say there is war also. You have seen, you have heard in news channels also, or you might have read in books also. There were several wars in the past. In your history also you might have studied. There were several times where we had to fight. Even in India also there were fights. India had fought with Pakistan. You might have heard of Kargil. So there were plenty of soldiers who had lost their lives in those wars actually. So she's saying that these war never happens, and the who are the soldiers who are going to sacrifice their life to bring glory to the country. That means she's very sad that if my soldier tomorrow, if there is a war in the country and my soldier goes to fight in those wars, obviously many of them will die. So Mother India is actually very sad even by thinking this whole stanza has an optimistic note suggesting that the sacrifice of today shall succeed in making a better tomorrow. So sometimes what happens is that you cannot stop war. Say a country, uh, say any country which is troubling India. Say we have our neighboring countries also. Uh, they keep on troubling India. So what can India do maximum? India can maximum go against the country, by declaring a war. Now Mother India is telling that sometimes sacrifice is important because the sacrifice of today will make a better tomorrow. How? Say if India goes on a war with a country that is spreading terrorism, so India, if tomorrow India's soldiers fights with that country and India wins also, so India will be able to, after winning, India will be able to do a deal with those countries that you end up terrorism or you face the consequences. So the defeated countries, the country or the nation who will lost from India at the hands of India, they will come to a compromise that yes, from tomorrow we shall not support terrorism, and no terrorist activities will take place in my country. So in that way, a sacrifice of today will succeed in making a better tomorrow. Okay, I hope you have understood. What we can do is that after I end up my video, you can go to the comment section of this channel, and you can ask questions if you have not understood anything, and in my next video I'll be solving all your questions. Okay, I'll try to give the answers of all your questions. Let us continue with stanza 4. When the terror and the tumult of hate shall cease, and life be refashioned on anvils of peace, and your love shall offer memorial thanks to the comrades who fought in your dauntless ranks, and you honor the deeds of the deathless ones, remember the blood of thy martyred sons. Sorry. In the final stanza, Mother India vehemently, very strongly expresses her sense of pride in the achievements of the Indian soldiers. So obviously, you take the example of an Indian mother, just a mother, normal human mother, okay? Say a son or a daughter gets a first prize in a competition. So her mother feels very proud, isn't it? In that same way, our mother India also is very proud because of the achievements of the Indian soldiers. That Indian soldiers had fought in the battles, had fought in the wars, and they have won also. Okay, they had earned laurels for the country, for our Indian, for our India, for our country. So even though she has suffered a lot, a hope for a better future in which peace is restored. So Mother India is continuously hoping for a better future, uh, where there will be complete peace and harmony, shanti. Okay, complete peace and harmony. Everybody will be united. Ekta, we say. Everybody will be united, and this hope actually gives her satisfaction. See, it is a hope that Indian mother is looking forward to. She is actually not saying that there will be a better she is hoping for a better future. Okay, through the sacrifice of the Indian soldiers, she is hoping that there will be a better future tomorrow where there will be peace, and she is satisfied with the thought. It is a thought. Okay, try to understand. It is a thought by Mother India that there will be peace in future, and the future will be very better for the generations to come. So the poem ends on a note of optimism and hope, and Mother India hopes when the world of terror and hate shall cease, a new world will be formed. So obviously, you see, this is quite obvious that uh, the world will be better only when we live in peace, instead of going on a communal war. You often see or read in newspapers, or you watch television news also, where every now and then you find this religion fights with the other religion, this particular caste fights with the other caste, this particular community fights with the other community. In this way, if this continues, we will never have peace. We will never have peace, and we will never have a better future. In order to have peace, and in order to ensure a better future, we must and we should not fight actually. So Mother India hopes that when the world of terror and hate shall cease money, stop. Okay. So when terrorism and hatred, grina we say, hatred, okay, towards one another, that I hate you, when this hatred will come to an end, जब ये बंद हो जाएगा, when it will come to an end, a new world will be formed. That means a new world means here a peaceful world where there is no fight, where everyone lives in unity, everybody loves one another. This kind of world will be formed in which peace and harmony would bring joy in people's lives. So this is quite clear. You see, when there is peace and harmony, obviously in all our lives there will be joy, and people will live in peace. People will be free to roam about. There will be no restrictions. Nobody will tell you anything. So this is all about stanza 4, and then we continue stanza 4. Sorry. Mother India expects the world to respect and remember the soldiers. This is very important. Okay. Mother India expects the world to respect and remember the soldiers who fought bravely in the wars and sacrificed their life for a peaceful future. So I gave you the example of Kargil wars. Okay. So Mother India wants that we remember the sacrifice that these Indian soldiers have made. We do not forget the sacrifice. Those soldiers who have lost their lives in the border, and they are still dying actually because of our enemy countries. Okay, we remember the sacrifice of the soldiers. Okay, she also hopes that the contribution of the Indian soldiers will be recognized by the world. So not only Indian people, she wants that the whole world remembers the sacrifice of the Indian soldiers. Now, previously we have learned, I'll just move back to the earlier slides. Here you can see that 1 million Indian troops from Britain's colonial empire. We have learned here that Indian soldiers had fought for Britain, they had fought for Persia, they had fought for Egypt, you know, previously. So Mother India wants that the whole world recognizes, the whole world, see, Britain, Persia, Egypt, France, even France also, all these countries, even the other countries also, remembers and recognizes the contribution of the Indian soldiers to the world. She wants people to pay their homage and gratitude. That means she wants people to respect and revere the soldiers so that they can be immortalized. Immortalized means Amar. You know, Amar, the word Amar you have already heard, somebody who does not die. So there are people like Mahatma Gandhi, they're immortals. People like Subhash Chandra Bose, the contributions of these national heroes, uh, you know, uh, these heroes are actually immortal. They will never die. Okay, their bodies may be lifeless, but will continue to talk about them in the future also. So she wants people to pay their homage and gratitude to the soldiers so that they can be immortalized. So every time, every now and then, we must remember the sacrifice of these Indian soldiers, and in this way we can pay them homage, in order to make them immortalized, okay, in the history of the world, for their valor and heroism. So for their courage and heroism, these Indian soldiers should always be remembered, that they have given selfless, uh, service to our country by protecting us. By protecting us in extreme weathers, our Indian soldiers protect us in the borders. When we sleep, they keep awake so that we can, sleep in peace, so that we don't have any problems. They are all guarding the borders. They are all protecting us in the borders. So we must always remember them. And I'm sorry. And those soldiers, who have lost their lives, we must pay them homage by not forgetting them, by not forgetting their courage and their heroism. So that's all. Thank you. You can write down the summary page by page. You can pause the video and write down the summary page by page. And that's all. Thank you so much.